Make your next move with American Express Business Platinum. You'll get 5 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels booked on AmexTravel.com. Plus, enjoy access to the American Express Global Lounge Collection. And with the welcome offer of 150,000 points, your business can soar to all new heights. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum. Amex Business Platinum, built for business by American Express.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger for thousands of appetizing ingredients that inspire countless mouthwatering meals. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices. Plus, extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week and up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with points. So you can get big flavors and big savings. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
The Dental Download podcast is your source for insight from conversations with fellow dentists, specialists, and leaders in the industry. With new episodes every Monday morning, I'm your host, Dr. Haley. Let's get into this week's episode.
Which you can.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, we're on part 2 with Dr. Chad here. So the last episode, we talked a little bit about CFD, the practice where we get to work together, and what's kind of unique about the style of our practice. But this episode is going to be diving a little bit more into who Dr. Chad is as a person, as a clinician, and his journey to now you're almost 10 years out of school, right?
Yeah, I'm 11, 2013.
Oh, look at that.
2013 I graduated, yeah.
Well, there you go. So for people that didn't listen to the last episode, quick little rundown of, I guess you went to Ohio State for dental school and you started here as an associate after about a year or two. You bought in.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And you've been here ever since being out of school. You didn't work anywhere else.
Correct.
But you obviously know people with other backgrounds and family and stuff and other elements of dentistry. So you kind of know what else is out there and how you wanted to go about practicing.
Yeah, pretty much. But now that you say that, Dr. Haley, I actually don't know much of how other people practice. Like you hear some stuff afterwards of the people that graduated and stuff, but it was weird. I kind of always just wanted to do it this way. And I think the background might help. So my mom's a teacher, kids moving around, talking all day. My dad is a mechanic. He's a boat mechanic. My dad was always solo practitioner is what we call it in dentistry, right? No employees. He worked 10 houses from where he lived. But very, very early on, I noticed that nobody was telling him what to do, which is a gift and a curse, right? It's a gift in that nobody's telling you what to do. It's a curse in that you're the one that's got to turn yourself on and fire yourself up every day. And it was crazy to just see him do that over and over again. And same thing with my mom. Like my mom worked well past retirement age because she wanted to. And so that was a little bit of the background that made me know if I'm doing this, I want to be in a position where, you know, like they talk about corporate dentistry a lot. And my brother's a corporate dentist. My brother works in Oklahoma and it's great. He's at an awesome place and it's a really good place that gives him a lot of autonomy in what he does. And he loves it. But I always knew, you ever seen those predictive index scores, those like personality tests?
We've talked about it.
You talked about those?
Yeah.
So I've taken those before. And I have I don't even know what you would call him. He's a stepfather-in-law who he ran a big company, you know, and was doing really well, but he was really good at those. He took one on me and he said, so the main thing I get out of yours is you're unhireable. Nobody's going to hire you. So it's not a bad thing. It means stay with what you're doing and stay this course. And I always knew I wanted to do that. And it seems like a good size, right? Like in the last episode, we were talking about how it feels good. It just seems like a good number of people to work with and a good amount of responsibility to have.
Which it's gradually grown since you started with Dr. Shields and then you went in and did the expansion and probably grew the team. I don't think we've talked about this. How big was the team when you started with Dr. Shields? So there was 2 doctors at that point.
No, yeah, there was 1 doctor.
Yeah.
It was, do you guys get into like financials and stuff too?
Go
Numbers?
for it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I think there was probably 6 people that were working there. They were doing $900,000 a year consistently, I would say. And consistently meaning about 3 years. So that's the size that I came into. And then when I started, I actually So my first year, I think I brought home $70,000, 70, which is, by the way, you guys probably, if you haven't figured this out yet, it's going to be painful, but I don't think that covers student loans. Like, I don't think it's enough. My wife was at a public health clinic, so we were able to make ends meet, but that's what it started with. And now, what is it? We're going to do over 4 million this year. We might already be over 4 million. If we're not, we're close. And 15 people, 4 doctors. Yes. So it has grown.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big scale. And you said like feels like a sweet spot size wise, but how did you know when you felt ready to bring on Dr. Bono, when you felt ready to bring me on that? Like, how was that decision?
Well, it's scary. They're always scary. I mean, it's because it's scary on 2 forms, right? It's anytime you bring someone on to a team, if you're doing it right, I mean, it's a responsibility. Like, now there's another livelihood that has to come from this. So part of it's scary for that. Like, oh my gosh, are we going to be able to help this person thrive? Thrive, right? Not survive. It's easy to survive. You need food and water and a place to live, and you barely need a place to live. So we're not in the survive business, we're in the thrive business. So that part was scary. The other scary part that you have to get over is, man, are these people going to be better at my job than me? Like that. So that part's scary too, because you just naturally, if you have any ounce of ego, you naturally start to think, is this person going to be taking something from me? So that part was hard to get through. And I think the only way through is you have to believe what I do is that there's plenty of dentistry, there's plenty of patients, there's plenty of abundance out there as long as you're doing it right. So yeah, that was scary.
Yeah. And I think we'll circle back to the more, I guess, personal about your journey. But while we're talking about like having associates and everything, yeah. I feel like another element too is like, this is like your place. You're so intertwined with it, and bringing in someone new to like treat your patients when you kind of have that mindset. Like, how was that process? Or
the first thing was to accept that they're not your patients, right? They're patients who have decided to come to your office. So that was the first thing, is like, you have to lose the territorialness. And then also, I mean, it comes down to faith in yourself. If you believe in yourself and your decisions making, another part of that is you've decided to bring on a team member. So you have to trust that it's going to work itself out in that way if you give everybody room to grow. Mm-hmm. Because the other thing, you've probably seen this, you've probably been here long enough. Yes, the DNA of this place will always be in me, and I'll always be in it, right? Because so much of this was in my brain before it was here. But I don't know what the answer is, Dr. Haley, but fortunately, I'm okay with other people putting their DNA and personality in here. I actually prefer it. I think it's better, and that's the only way that you can make this stuff grow without burning yourself out, is you start to realize it's better when more people's personality is in this than yours.
Yeah.
As long as everybody's thinking the same way.
Yeah. I mean, I think the way you handle things is very like impressive, allowing, Dr. Bono to come in and just grow in his own way. And like you said, bring in his own flavor, his own subset of procedures. Like, this is how I want to do this and that. And being supportive and open-minded, I think, is rare to find in an office, because people can get very, I guess, territorial, like you said, but the patients can leave anytime that they want regardless. Like, they're not yours, like you said.
Yeah, they're not yours any freaking time they want. And here's the other reality. The team can leave anytime they want too. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's empowering, right? Because anytime we want, or anytime I get scared, I just try to remind myself and everybody, we've all decided to work together. That's powerful. None of us have to be here, but we've decided to. So if we decided to work together, now we can really make good things happen. Mm-hmm. So that's the most exciting part.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's scary. It's a little bit scary every day, but that's good. I mean, I've always thought to myself, we have this cool bridge. You go over it. Do you go over the covered bridge sometimes? So we have this cool bridge that it's about 5 minutes from our office. I think it's the longest covered bridge in Michigan, from like the 1800s. And so it's cool. The way I think about it is like you're driving through a portal towards your vocation and career, right? It's also where I stopped picking my nose, so nobody can see me pick my nose. But when I drive through it, I've always told myself, if I don't get a little bit of tightness in my stomach, like a little bit of butterflies, I probably shouldn't be coming to work anymore. Like, you need a little bit of pressure, a little bit, not a bunch, but enough that you still want to grow and improve things. So the day that I drive through it, I'm like, oh my gosh, another day where we're doing whatever. It's probably not time for me to work here anymore. Mm-hmm. So that's a big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If your career goals include practicing in an organized, comfortable environment, we can't forget to factor in ADAC Inspire 300 dental cabinets. Ordinary cabinets don't streamline workflow, and they don't stand up to the harsh operatory environment. This line takes ADAC's most popular configurations and boils them down to pre-configured, budget-friendly packages. ADAC Inspire 300 dental cabinets use top-of-the-line materials chosen specifically for dental. They test for 20-plus years of use by estimating things like how many times a practitioner will press a button or open a drawer, and they run through those cycles to make sure it holds up. If it doesn't, it's redesigned. Along with longevity, ADAC builds with a conscious eye towards the sustainability of our planet, incorporating best practices that minimize environmental impact, and that's a goal we can all stand behind. Go to the link in my show notes to see the whole ADAC Inspire 300 line. And I've talked about on the podcast plenty, like my job search process and finding this office and how I love it here, obviously. But from your perspective, what was the process like of looking for an associate, and how did you decide that these are people that you wanted to bring in?
Let me see they're all a little different. I mean, we used some like DDS Match and things like that. So we used some of those things to look. And then, I mean, literally when we do anything, you just saw, we had a prospective new team member that was a patient today at 1:00. And when I went into our end of day huddle, she's sitting at her freaking huddle. So like, it's almost like when you decide you want someone, you just put it everywhere you can, and something's going to stick and hit. And there's a lot of filtering. There really is. And there's a lot of layers to the filtering until you find a person that fits. So there wasn't one process. I mean, I'm a big fan of doing just getting your name out on the internet and stuff like that. But at the same time, you have to do the face-to-face work. That was the main process, is get the people in so they can see the people that work here. That was the huge one.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of finding a place that's right for you to work at is fit. And like we were saying, just the feeling. But for people listening that are looking for jobs, what advice would you have on finding one that's good for them?
Oh, yeah. I love this. Don't do anything that anybody else tells you to do. I mean, it is not hard to find dentist's office. So you know what I would want if I was looking for someone else is, by the way, anybody can talk to us about anything, because we're always open to growing and bringing great people on. But do something weird, like cold calls. The way I did it, I just did it because it was easiest for me. But what Dr. Shields told me once was nobody had ever just called me, right? We, and anybody who's a dentist now, you know this, all day you've got crap to do. The last thing you want is to sit down at the end of the day and go through more crap. So the more weird, the more random and serendipitous you can make it, the more likely you are to get someone's attention. So like, I'm a huge fan of cold calls. I'm a huge fan of show up at the door, bring flowers, bring cookies, like just do something different. Write letters. I mean, anything that gets dentists out of, you know this, right? How many times you go in your office, there's a piece of paper on there, or you got an email to look at, or there's the media we use all the time. So if I was giving advice to someone, I would say try to figure out a way to use a form of media that doesn't normally get used in a dental office. That would be the key. Gift boxes, like the last thing you want to do at the end of the day is flick through 15 resumes that all look the same. Because here's the secret. It's on everybody's resume. You know this. You've seen some of the ones that we've had for team members here. Everybody on a resume is team-oriented, hardworking, and open. Right? Most resumes look similar. You're just looking for spelling errors. So yeah, get weird.
Yeah. And when it comes to time to go see an office, what are some things you think is worth taking note of or asking about?
When you're looking for a job?
Yeah.
The things I would look at are how well organized the systems are between I wouldn't shadow a dentist. Like, you shadowed, right?
I mean, I was all around. I was trying to see like what they're up to, and just like side conversations, get to know people, not just like stand there and watch you drill for 8 hours.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't stand there and watch dentists drill. You nailed it though. It's the side conversations. It's the interactions between like team members together, but also like team member and doctor. I really looked at the patients, because if you have the chance to shadow on a day when there's patients there, take it, right? Because you get to see how the doctor and the team interacts with the people. And here's the other thing to layer this in. And I didn't know this until probably a few years ago. Yes, you want them to have a system and you want them to have a flow and you want them to have stuff. But I actually think if I was looking back and going backwards, I would care less about what the system was and more just that they had a system. Because what you have a tendency to do, and you can tell me if you did this, Dr. Haley, you have a tendency to look for the office that's perfect for you right now. This is exactly what I want right now, which is great. I mean, if you could have that, do it. But you don't really need that, because the superpower that all the dentists have, that we all have and everybody listening has, is if you're in the right spot, you're going to be given permission to imprint your style on it. So you're really just looking for a place that has a system and is open enough for you to putting some of your DNA into it. So like at the beginning, it was always like, I'm going to hold off because I want the doctor to do this procedure, and they farm out endo, so I know I can make some more revenue come in there. Like, and all that stuff's great. But at the end of the day, you just want someone who's going to let you be the dentist that you want to be. That's the magic when it happens.
Yeah. And I feel like something people struggle with coming out of school is either people don't want to hire a new grad, or they think people don't want to hire a new grad, and that's like a barrier they're putting in front of themselves.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you hired 2 people right out of school.
Yes.
So what made you decide this person's like fine and ready and I'm comfortable bringing them in?
So the short answer to that is the fertile soil here, anything's going to grow, right? So the environment that we have here is going to give people permission to be their best selves. Don't you think? I mean, is that a good way to put it?
Yeah.
So that would be the short answer. But I don't know. Like, what is it? What do you think? Do you know? Why don't dentists hire people out of school?
I mean, I'd like to think it's mostly confidence of the person themselves. That, because I've talked to some people like, oh, like I could never do 6 anterior crowns. I'm like, well, why not? Like, you know how to do a crown. She's like, I just like wouldn't feel comfortable like having a patient pay for that from me. And I'm like, well, why? Like, you know how to do it. So I think it's a lot of just like self-limiting, thinking that there's going to be some like magic light bulb moment. Like, now I am a true dentist. Like, I don't know.
I don't either.
Yeah.
And I want to go back to that if we've got time on the I can't get them to pay for that, because that's a big part of this always.
Yeah.
But why do you think that's like why the dental students have a hard time with it, right?
Yeah.
What about the like dentists, like the owners? Why don't they want to hire new students?
I think it is similar to what we were talking about before, like anyone, but they just are very protective of their patients, obviously, which they should be. But I think you can bring someone in and like ease them in way and be like, realize if someone's way off the rails.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because I really don't know the answer to that if we're just saying purely because I think it's better, right? And it's mostly just because, I mean, you could hire someone that's done something for 3 years out of school, and all they've done for 3 years is practice wrong. It's way harder to break habits and build habits. Yeah. So to me, it always made more sense to bring people on. But, you know, at the same time, we're unique because like, I ain't looking to retire. So I'm 38 for anybody who doesn't know. And I have no intention of like retiring next year. Yeah. But my whole goal was always, we have a lot of people, not a lot, but we have some people outside the office that we use to help coach us on things. And I've always thought it was such a good gift that I wish I could give people like in your position, the opportunity to practice like that at a younger age. Because have you ever had something in your life where like you get it? And so we have a farm at our house. So not a big farm. It's 50 acres. We got like 20 cows and some chickens and stuff. And the first 3 years, I didn't have a wagon. So I just walk around carrying stuff. And then Dr. Libby, my wife, she's lovely and sweet. She bought me a wagon. And so I started carrying the wagon around and I was like, how the hell did I not have a wagon 5 years ago? Right? Like there's just some stuff in your life that you get and you're like, man, why didn't I do this so much long ago? The systems that we have in our office, that's what I think about all the time. Yeah. Is like, man, if I would have had this when I was 26, I can't imagine where we'd be. And so to me, that was always something I thought would be cool for like you to have right out of school. Yeah. Like don't do stuff the wrong way like I did for 7 to 10 years and then try to fix it. Just start in a way that works.
Build a routine with Ollie that supports your wellness needs, like getting your daily vitamins and minerals with Ollie's multi-gummies, or keeping your mood upbeat with all the vitamin D in Hello Happy. Give your gut health some support with probiotics, and wake up feeling refreshed after taking Ollie Sleep. Do wellness on your terms. Find Ollie at a Walmart or Target near you or at ollie.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Burlington's Oh Wow Winter Clearance event is on right now. Throughout your store, you'll find tons of new markdowns just taken. Look for red clearance tags throughout the entire store for her, him, the kids, and your home. Score some serious savings at Burlington, up to 70% off other retailers' prices on clearance items. These deals on top of deals won't last long, so stop in today. Burlington. Deals, brands, wow. Prices and selections vary by location.
But did you feel like before you started working with the coaching program, things were not going well, or you were just looking to kind of like level up? Like, how did you connect with them, and when did you decide this is something worth exploring?
Yeah, level up for sure. I mean, we were doing great. So we did, if we go right into numbers, it was like 900,000, 1 million, 1.2, 1.7. And then we kind of were there, which is fine, by the way. That's a good single practice, doctor and a half, 2 doctors. That's a decent living. And then you get curious or you get bored or whatever it is, and you try to figure out what's next. And that's when we got in with the current coaches we use. Mm-hmm. Are you giving names or not?
Yeah, you can talk.
So right now we work with, they're called Dental Success Today. And they've been great. And really, look, here's the deal with consultants and coaches and whatever you want to call them. Everybody's going to call themselves something different and say they're not consultants, but that's only because we give consultants a bad rap. Like, they're whatever. Mm-hmm. They're the people that help us with the systems in the office. So you call them whatever you want. But really what you're looking for with one of those is a company whose values align with your values, whatever they are. And so they, for me personally, they were great. And that's the one we've stuck with. But what they did was they allowed us to take all the other ones out. Because one of the mistakes I made at the beginning was you try to do like 3 or 4 different consulting things all at once in 3 or 4 different systems. And then everybody just gets confused. And that's kind of where we were stuck, is like Dr. Chad is trying to figure out where the next level is and hasn't figured it out yet. Mm-hmm. So then when we got with them, it really hit rocket fuel.
Nice. Yeah. So back to you as more of an individual person. Couple things. So we talk a lot about patients being healthy, and it's not just teeth, it's not just cavities and periodontal disease. And for me, I feel like it's important to kind of practice what you preach. And that's something I'm working on, trying myself to be a healthier person. But I feel like you and Dr. Libby do a fairly excellent job with that. So, and we've talked about that before, like you didn't necessarily grow up eating the cleanest diet as a kid and things like that. So when did you have a shift towards like, I want to take care of myself as well as I can? And how do you actually practice that?
Like, what's it look like?
Yeah.
I had a shift when I started feeling too much like crap to not do it, basically. But yeah, I was 4 or 5 cereal bowls a day, like, just whatever normal food. I used to drink a Coke before school every day in high school, like that kind of stuff. The big shift was when you accept that it's better and you're better when you feel good, not bad. Like, that simple. And if you're looking for, words of wisdom ever for any dentist in your audience, man, the earlier you focus on not screwing around with your health, the better you're going to be. Like, that's it. Better at your job, better for your family, better in your hobbies, all that stuff. So like, the way I think about it is dental athlete. Like, you're an athlete, you got to treat yourself like an athlete. And the shift, really, we've always been health conscious, both of us, in different ways. Dr. Libby's always been more on the food and the calmness and, her, so like that kind of stuff. And I was always big into the exercising, triathlons, wakeboarding, snowboarding, all that stuff. And 26, 27, that's when you get out of dental school. What you probably know, and you can agree or disagree with me, you don't realize how much time you have in dental school until after dental school. And so in dental school, you could do study and then go to class and then study some more and then go play basketball for 3 hours. You could do that and you get the movement in and you're doing okay because you're young. But as you get into work and you realize like, man, I got to show up every day, you start to get fatigued by the end of the week. And I kind of just looked at myself and said, man, I don't really want to feel like crap every Wednesday night. Like, I don't want to be exhausted from the first half of the work week. What can I do to fix it? And then you just start figuring stuff out. I'd go see a doctor I knew about some kind of health thing. I'd go see a friend who was doing something with nutrition or exercise. The biggest breakthrough for me was a guy named Dr. Daniel Clower, who I don't know if you've seen yet, but he works exclusively on TMJ and sleep apnea. And I actually thought about working with him for a while, a long time ago when he was an associate in another office. But he branched off and he just does sleep and TMJ. And I went to an exam. And I really don't remember if I went because I had problems or if I was curious how his office ran. It was probably both. But essentially, I had sleep apnea, a honking nasal obstruction, and I ate like crap, even though I thought I was eating healthy. And so he made a plan. And for whatever reason, I don't know if it was the right moment in my life or whatever, but he told me the plan. And I just went, okay. And I just started doing it. And it was like anti-inflammatory nutrition. I got my nose fixed. Sleep study turned out I had sleep apnea, so I wear a sleep orthotic. And I just started feeling better. And then it gets addictive. Like, I want to feel like this. I don't want to feel like that. So the heavy IPA that you would drink at 9 o'clock because you were sitting there watching football, it made you feel like crap in the morning. So I stopped drinking it. And just little by little, these incremental changes would happen, all toward feeling better all day, every day. And that's it.
Yeah, like it's kind of self-sustaining because now it's motivating. And
if
you now that you don't eat a bunch of sugar and crap processed foods, you have a little bit and you feel awful. So.
Yes. And that was the key. The key was, and goes back to patience, right? You don't know what good feels like until you feel it once. And then when you feel it once, if you're paying attention to yourself and your body, mindfulness, meditation. You ever had a mindfulness person on here?
Not really, not specifically, no.
Oh my God. Like, if you could do one thing for yourself, it's give yourself 15 to 20 minutes a day with yourself. Sitting, feeling, in silence. If thoughts come in, that's fine. If no thoughts come in, that's fine. But it just allows you every day to check the dipstick. How am I feeling? How am I doing? And the more I did that kind of stuff with the health stuff, you just start to naturally go that way little by little. So that was huge.
And you guys have a daughter. Have you found it's challenging with like the outside world to keep her as healthy as you'd like and like raise her in a way?
No, not at all.
Not too bad.
Not at all. No.
Okay.
It's as hard as you make it.
Yeah.
But no, Tessa, we don't eat that in our family.
Yeah.
That's it. No, it's as easy as you make it. And the other thing, right, to realize, and it's a reality that smacks you in the face. You ain't got nothing better to do. 100% focus on your health and your family. Like, that's it. There's nothing better to do. So is it hard? Like, it's hard if we would say, grandma and grandpa, that's my parents, they watch her a lot. No crap food, no M&Ms, no Cheetos. We're going to argue with you every time. Yeah, that'd be hard. But like 90 or 80% of the time, she does pretty good. So if grandma sneaks her an M&M, we do not have a family meeting. Like, it's fine, but she's angrier. She's got more of a headache. Like, you can tell she doesn't feel as good. And then we calibrate it. But we talk to her like she's an adult.
Yeah.
It could be because you're eating the M&Ms. They might be giving you a headache. Not the M&Ms. It might be though. Like, let's just think about it. So yeah, it's not that hard.
Yeah.
But we're also, we've intentionally made a little parallel universe here that allows us and gives us permission to think and act the way we do. So I think that's part of it. Like, the more you just kind of make your own little personal universe and then you start building from that, the easier stuff is. Yeah.
And do you think that would be a lot harder to do if you were in like downtown Chicago or something? Like, do you think being in a rural area is what allows you to live the way you want to live?
That's a good question. I don't know. I've never lived in a big town. So I grew up in Cassopolis, 2,000 people. Now I live in Vicksburg, which, how many people are in Vicksburg?
Not much more than that. Yeah, not a lot.
Yeah, like, I've always not been in cities, but I don't know, probably because, geez, I've been to Chicago. You know what I do in Chicago? I drink and I go to bars and eat. Like, that's it. So there's other stuff there when you live there, but probably because I think access to the land, access to food, access to space makes it easier.
Definitely.
I don't know. What do you think? Do you think it'd be harder in a city?
Yeah, for sure. To do it exactly the way you're doing it, where you guys are eating a lot of what you're growing yourselves and everything, and kind of disconnecting at home and just being present with the fact that you're at home.
Yes. I do think the key, and I don't remember where I got it from, is, they always say being healthy is expensive, which is it's not true, right? It's just not. Like being healthy is always going to take less money than being sick. People will say food's expensive when you eat it healthy. Really, all it is you've got to figure out how much money you're spending on food type substances. Because there's food and then there's food type substances. And most people, I mean, even me still, like I'll go to the gas station and get a snack bar or something. Like food type substances were probably a lot of my revenue was probably going to that. And so the minute you take that out, you realize how much money you have to spend on food and lifestyle and all that stuff. So
yeah, if my grocery cart is actually just like meat and vegetables and fruit, it's so cheap. But it's when you get like, oh, like the healthy cracker and the healthy branded this and that. And it's like 10 times more than the unhealthy one, but you just don't need it at all.
That would be an interesting, like actual exercise to do or something, like, you know, because we always talk about how to help patients with this stuff. Like I've never even thought of that. So it's a good idea. You just get the receipt and you take a highlighter and just go through it and highlight the things that are food. Because you're right, it's probably not gonna be much.
Yeah.
So it's a good idea.
And another thing, so being married to a dentist, would you recommend? I know you don't know anything different.
Yes, I would recommend it. She's amazing and it's awesome. Yes, I would. I would definitely recommend it. It's the same though as bringing on an associate, right? It's not your way or the highway. It's a team effort. She's got her way of practicing. I've got my way. No expectations, no resistance to anything. The biggest thing, I mean, this is marriage advice, but this is also me and you, right? It is never here in this office, me versus Dr. Haley for a treatment plan, for the color paint on the wall, for how we're managing care calls and follow-up visits. Like it's never us against each other. It's always me and Dr. Haley versus the problem that's keeping this office from being as good as it can be. And it's the same thing with working with a dental spouse. We ain't arguing about anything. We might have different ways, but we're trying to do the same thing. So it's being able to put your focus on that. So no, I've never found issues with it, but also like you make the issues you make. So if you don't make it an issue, it's usually not an issue.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I don't know. How do you think we do?
Great.
Do you?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think you have such different personalities in general. So it's always fun to see the dynamic with the interactions and everything.
Yeah, that's true.
But I don't think that's just a dentist thing. I think that's just unique individual people.
Yes. But here's the deal too. And this might get into a little bit of like the underlying philosophy stuff, which I don't know if you like it or if you want to cut it out, but I don't believe in a work-life balance at all. And I think that it actually is dangerous to try to make a work-life balance. And what I mean by that is you shouldn't have a life out of the office. I mean, you probably know, first off, we are a lifestyle focused office more than anything. So the dental office and your business and your job has to fit in your life, not the other way around. But the same coin, different side is it's not on at work, then off, and then on at home. It's always on. So it's one life. And the easiest way to think about this is if you and your wonderful and handsome and beautiful husband-to-be get in an argument, it's coming to work, right? Like you're going to be in a different mood. And if you have a case here where you do endo and it takes 3 hours instead of an hour and you couldn't get the files and one of them snapped off, you're not going home and instantly hugging Justin and saying how awesome your day is, right?
Yeah.
So like one of the bigger underlying philosophies that I think is really helpful is it's just one life. Like it's all one. So it's all connected. It never goes away. You're not turning something on and then turning something else off. Like it just all goes together. So if Dr. Libby and I are out at dinner, like you know how you hear sometimes the rules, we're not talking about work at dinner. Yes, we're married and we do office stuff. We're not talking about work at dinner. If it comes up, it comes up.
Yeah.
If it doesn't come up, we talk about other stuff. Like you got to have two things going on. One, be happy and proud of the work you do because then you can talk about it. Two, have other shit going on in your life besides your job. And I think if you get those two things going at the same time, it doesn't matter as much when you get in little tiny arguments or you have different disagreements on stuff. It's just all one life.
Yeah.
So that's a big one.
I don't know if it was the last episode or this one where you specifically mentioned like you want to be energized by your job and not be drained by it. And a lot of that probably goes to designing a job and a day-to-day that you like. So at what point did you realize you had an interest beyond just fillings and crowns and things? And when did you start bringing in TMJ sleep to the practice and scaling back a little bit?
scaling back from like general dentistry stuff.
Which, I mean, you still do a good amount every day pretty much, but.
Well, that's what you're growing that stuff.
Yeah.
So then I start to make that stuff go away because you're an amazing dentist. So that stuff works great. The time I started doing it was right after I met Dr. Clower and actually got better. When I started feeling better, it basically turned to me picking up the phone, calling Dr. Clower and saying, hey man, like, I need to learn this stuff because I'm guessing I'm not the only one with these problems. And if I can feel like this, I think it would be amazing if more people could feel like that. So it started then. It's probably 3 years into it. And then you got to go back to school. You got to keep learning stuff. You already know this, right? When you get your dental degree, it is just permission to learn for the next 30 years of your life. Like that's it. You just get to learn with drills and needles in people's mouths now instead of just in books and on typodonts. But that was probably when it started going that way. And then I love the word you just said in there, design. I mean, part of having one life that involves work and at home is you've got to be in alignment with how you actually live, like you said. So because I live like this, can't help it. And patients don't have a choice. It's just what I talk about because that's stuff that I use in my life to make myself better. And why wouldn't we want to share that with everybody else?
And is it so much that you just really love the impact that makes versus I hate drilling on teeth?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, look, drilling on teeth, when we actually think about what we do, is pretty cool. Like for a bunch of different levels, there's some person you barely know who trusts you enough to lay down and let you put a drill in his mouth. Like that's pretty crazy. And then also like, it's just a form of tinkering. Like my wife calls it fizzle farting. Like you're getting to manipulate matter and move stuff around to change shapes and make people healthy. Like it's pretty cool. So it was never that I hated dentistry. It was, you're always just thinking, how can I do more than someone else or do it differently? Like there's plenty of people who are really good at doing the general dentistry stuff. And, myself included, I'm not the most amazing. How did they grade it at U of M?
It was like secret letters. Like they wouldn't do like ABC. Yeah. It was like, for actual patient care, like they had like RSTV. Okay. So like the patient wouldn't know that you got an F on their tooth. Okay, they'd be like, yeah, that's a V.
That's smart. And then like typodonts too, was it the same way? So I think ours was like 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
And like 2 and above was passing. 4 was like, oh my gosh, this person got it to the micron perfect. I was like 3s consistently.
Yeah.
So above average, passable, this filling can last forever. Never the, oh my gosh, that transverse ridge is beautiful and the occlusion is perfectly, like I didn't have any of that stuff. So I always liked the drilling, but the reality when I stepped back and looked was not very many people in our area knew much about the TMD and the sleep breathing disorders. So it was just a gap. And if you're living like water and you're flowing where the need is, that was the best spot to go. That was the path of least resistance to help the most people. So that's how I started doing it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And I thought of something while you were talking, but then, you get to listening and then you forget what you were going to say.
What was it?
Come to me later, I'm sure, another time. Let me think, is there anything else? I mean, there's always more, but.
Mistakes I made?
Yeah, sure.
Mistakes I made going forward or going into the past. You're expecting to do all of it. So like a really long time, I tried to do too much, meaning like you do the dentistry, you do the management, you do the team building, you do the bookkeeping, you do just the list can go forever, right? I mean, you can look around this place and see we could stay here till midnight and we'd have 10% of the stuff we need done. So one of the first mistakes I made was trying to hold on to too much. And one of the second mistakes I made was giving up too much stuff.
Yeah.
Right? So there is the middle ground, but I think the biggest mistakes for sure at the beginning were squeezing too hard to try to force things to happen. That was huge. The more I let go and just told the team clearly what the expectations were and then got out of their way, they were able to really successfully grow us. And that was huge. I mean, I used to read all the stuff we do for consulting. I used to do all the meetings. I used to drive all the stuff, and then I'd go home and I'd count the bookkeeping. It's like just too much, and you can't spread yourself that thin. So that was the first mistake. And then I did try a couple of times to do like a couple different processes at once. Like, so we'd have an operating system, and then we'd have a management system, and then we have a market. And it was like, you're just confusing yourself. And here's a good litmus test. If you're confused as to what the hell you're doing, your team's confused. So that was big. That was a huge mistake I made at the beginning. What other mistakes did I make? So another big one that I think it was when I was a new dentist, and you might be experiencing this too, is at the beginning you feel like you have to have all the answers all the time in the moment, right? Mm-hmm. I don't want to go into this limited exam until I'm super prepared, because what if I don't know what's going on? So like at the beginning, it was very much over preparing. I'd over prepare for every procedure, and like, yeah, you want to be prepared, but 90% of the stuff that I thought I was going to have to go into, you don't have to go into. Mm-hmm. So I think that was big, is like, have faith that you know enough to help a person. And if you're not a jerk, then you're going to figure it out. So I say I don't know way more now than I did when I didn't know stuff, mm-hmm. right? When I didn't know stuff, I used to try to pretend that I knew stuff, and all the fancy words we use in dental school, I used to try to use those. I don't use any of those anymore. Mm-hmm. Now it's just go in, figure out what the problem is. If you can figure it out in the moment, you figure it out. If not, you tell the patient, hey, I need some more time to think this through, because I don't want to tell you anything that's going to make this harder for you. So give me the rest of the day. When I have a time between patients, when I can sit down and really commit some energy to this, I'll give you a call and make a plan. That was huge.
What about being bold, working, like we talk about that? That's something we're always, all of us are getting better and better and better at, and catching yourself and, oh, I should have said that way instead of how I said it after the moment. But being bold, being comfortable with big plans. Did you come out of school that way, or how did you grow into being more comfortable with, again, planning to ideal?
Yeah, it's a good question, because it's cool. It's an interesting answer. I was always bold, right? And I was always pretty clear. I've definitely got bolder, and I've got better with how I say stuff. Mm-hmm. The actual surprising thing was, it wasn't that I got bolder, is it the things I was getting bold about got bigger. Like, you nailed it earlier when you were talking about a lot of dentists say like, oh, I don't know if I can get a patient to pay for the 6 crowns. Like, when you're not making, when you're in the chair and you're doing the plan, that ain't your problem. It's not your problem to figure out if they can pay for it or not. It's your problem to figure out how to give them the best dental plan in the world. And then at the end, you bring the money back into it. So like, before Dr. Bono got here, before you got here, and you can do all this great stuff, like, my treatment plans were way smaller. And the news flash that I had to like face it myself, it was not because these people needed less stuff, right? They were not healthier. They were the same patients. I just wasn't thinking big enough of how I could help people. So that has changed quite a bit. The level of boldness changes with a little bit with the experience. When you've got enough stuff under your belt to know that, you know, I've seen this in X number of people and this is the best way to go, you just get more confident saying it. Right? Mm-hmm. It's way easier to jump off the cliff into the water the 4th time than it is the first time, because you don't know what's down there. Mm-hmm. So that was big. That was the level of boldness that I jumped up on.
Nice. And I feel like we could probably talk all night, talk forever, but we do have to wrap up eventually. So before we wrap up, do you have a final advice for new dentists?
Yes. If you can find, I don't know, tell me if you like this idea. If you can find the place that you want to lay down and grow roots in. Mm-hmm. Early, I think, is the best. Of course. I think that's a good one. Another good piece of advice I would say is, don't expect the office to be perfect that you go to. Just look for one that will allow you to add your personality to it. It'll grow with you. There's plenty of patience. It's just going to be, do you have a place that's going to allow you to grow and to make some controlling decisions? So that one's huge. That's it. Have a very good relationship with money. And if you don't, figure out how to do it. Mm-hmm. Because so much of what we do is ask people for money at the end of the day. And there is a level of guilt involved in that until you accept that what you're giving them in exchange for their money is a higher value. Mm-hmm. So that's a huge one. The 6 crown thing you were talking about. Like, we talk about this all day in the office here, right? The bolder you go and the more you can get to the spot where you say, yes, I want your money and I'm proud of it because I'm going to give you something better and I'm not going to waste a penny. Mm-hmm. That's where you can really start making some big changes.
Definitely.
And be weird. That's a big piece of advice. Just be weird. Like, you don't have to do things the way everybody else does. There's a book that I think, you could do book recommendations here?
Yeah, please.
So there's a million of them. We could do books. We could do 3 hours of books. But I mean, so if you don't read the 4 Agreements, the 4 Agreements is awesome for internal mindset stuff, if you guys aren't familiar with that. But that's a huge one. But there's a book called Linchpin by Seth Godin. It's a really good book, but the basic concept is everybody thinks, bosses and team members think that what we want is a bunch of normal people working there. And when you actually step back and you think about work, the most valuable people in an office are the ones that are being weird, not listening to normal procedures and being creative in their jobs, right? They've made themselves indispensable to the office. So we always think like we want replaceable team members, and it's a turnstile, and if one leaves, we can put another one in. It's really not what you want. You want each person to be indispensable to the office.
Yeah.
So that's a huge one. Is those 2 books are great. Dr. Haley is indispensable. You're definitely indispensable to this place. So I'm proud to work with you every day. Too.
Thank you. Yeah, I always have great things to say about you and the practice and the team. So very, very grateful, and thank you for your time tonight.
Happy
I
to
appreciate it.
Anytime you want. Yeah. And audience, give us feedback. If you like this, then we do it more. If you don't, you're like, get that guy to stop talking, then we stop doing it anymore. Just listen to Dr. Haley again.
Gosh, I'm sure you'll be highly, highly regarded, highly reviewed, Good. I would imagine.
And take her advice. I mean, always you're listening to this stuff, but she knows what she's doing, and she's very methodical, confident, skilled, and most importantly, you are a kind person with good intentions. And it's a big part of this is if you're going in this to screw people over, you're not going to have a good life. I'm very proud to call you a team member and a peer and a colleague. And I hope you're proud of yourself for everything you've done so far and what you'll do in the future too.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome.